John, here in London, we have forecasted for today sunshine and a high of 31. It is going to be a bit of a scorcher, and obviously there are concerns about children being left in cars in that kind of weather. We've seen the stats that kidsinCars.org has put out about heat stroke deaths among children in the United States. Do we have similar numbers here in Canada?
Scott, the unfortunate thing is that there is no one up until now that was actually tracking that information. We've been a big admirer of the work that kidsinCars.org does, and that's why we're now heading up their first Canadian chapter, kidsinCars.org Canada. And that's one of the messages that we're trying to bring to the authorities up here, is that this is a real problem, and it's something that we need to track so that we can educate the public about the danger.
What's the response been for that push to track these numbers?
Well, it's any effort like this that's new is always faces some skepticism at first, but my view is that this is such an important message, the safety of our children, that there's absolutely no reason why anyone wouldn't want to support it.
Let's talk a little bit about how it happens. Whenever we hear a story about a young child being left in a car and dying of heat stroke, oftentimes our first reaction is, what kind of parent would leave their child in a car on a scorching hot day? But it seems as though many times it's just an accident. Tell us a little bit about what the numbers seem to be suggesting about how this happens.
Well, look, the first thing that you have to remember is that these types of horrible incidents are not. No one leaves their child in a car, intentionally. This is not a failure of love. It's simply a failure of memory. These days, we're all leading incredibly busy lives, and it's just so easy to become distracted and not realize. You say to yourself, "I would never forget that my child is, in the back seat." But what the science is telling us is that is exactly what can happen. We are leading such stressful lives that as soon as we are diverted from our usual routine, it becomes statistically much more likely that we're going to, forget. And that's why kidsinCars.org Canada is trying to promote this information, promote awareness. This can happen so fast. A baby's body temperature climbs 3 to 5 times faster than an adult. So leaving a child in a car just for minutes can mean that a baby can die in less than 5 minutes. So what we're trying to promote are safety tips, information for the public that can help them remember not to forget. The one tip that kidsinCars.org came up with that I just love, I think it's great, is placing a teddy bear in your car seat. So whenever you place your child in the car seat, you put that teddy bear in the front seat with you, and you drive off. Now, you may feel a little silly driving around with a teddy bear in the front seat, but whenever you get to where you're going, if that teddy bear is sitting beside you, it means that there's someone precious sitting in the back seat. And that's just one of the many tips that Kids in Cars is putting out there to try to help parents remember that these kind of things can happen. They can happen quickly. They don't happen because anyone's to blame. They happen simply because we are all so busy.
Now, you mentioned that it does not take very long for the temperature inside a car to drastically increase on a hot, sunny day. Maybe go through some of the numbers, if you could, of just how hot it can get in a car and how quickly it can happen.
At a temperature, well, for example, here in Halifax today, it's it's in the 20s. It's a beautiful day. People are walking around in shorts outside. But in a car with the windows up, it can reach a temperature of over 100 degrees in less than 5 minutes. So, anything, a child, a pet, left in a car under that kind of temperature is, heat stroke is a real danger. And what you don't understand is just how quickly it can happen. I mean, even leaving your child in the car while you run into the gas station to pay for the gas, or while you run into the corner store to pick up a quart of milk, even that kind of brief errand can can lead to some really tragic consequences.
And lastly, John, we often talk about what people should do if they do see a child alone in a car, whether it's in a parking lot or where have you. What's the best advice for people? What should they do if they see a child alone in a car with the windows up on a hot day?
Look, sometimes the first inclination is not to get involved, but you got to remember the danger that this poses. So what KidsInCars.org Canada is recommending is that if you see a child in that situation, you dial 911. Stay there, talk to the child. If the parent or caregiver arrives back, then that's great. They can unlock the car. But you wouldn't want to be someone who could have prevented a tragedy by not calling 911. So if you see a child that's in a car on a hot day and they can't get out, you dial 911.